Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, where people seem to think the world revolves around them and they can do whatever the heck they want, whenever they want. And in this episode, guys, a sheriff and his son learn the hard way after believing that they are above the law. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. Hit subscribe if you haven't. And hey, don't shake your heads too hard. Okay, so I really need to vent here. So we have a neighbor that has a little girl around the same age as my little girl. They've become great friends. Every day, either my daughter would ask to go play with her, or she would ask if my daughter could play. And she would always say how much they loved having my daughter over and how polite she is and how she's such a good kid. The mom made me believe that we were becoming best friends, and I trusted her with my kids. I also have a toddler son. Now, I trusted this lady so much that I asked her to babysit my kids one day to pick up an extra shift at work. The next day, CPS shows up at my door. The date of the complaint was the day she babysat. The complaint said that I neglect my kids because they're filthy, and my daughter's hair is messy, so obviously I don't bathe them. The complaint also said that my house is unsafe due to trash everywhere. My kids play outside every day. It's summer. My daughter goes over there to swim, and yes, she's gonna get dirty, and her hair is gonna get messy. I told the CPS worker, of course my house is gonna be messy. We actually live here, and I have 2 little kids, and I work. She did a walkthrough of my house, and then talked to my daughter. She then said to me, could your house be cleaner? Sure, but is it unsafe? No. She even told me that her house gets messy, and her kids are older. She then made sure that my kids have a safe sleeping area, which they do. Made sure we have food and running water, which we do. She had no concerns from my daughter. She told me that they have to keep the case open for 30 days, and she'll let me know after 30 days if it'll be closed, which she said more than likely it will be because she found nothing wrong, and I'm livid at my neighbor. Our kids no longer play together. So yeah, that was a quick short post for you guys, but what in the frickin' world, right? Like, OP has every right to be livid. Like, I have no idea what the heck was going on in this woman's mind, but like, did she wake up one day and think, what kind of drama can I start? I need some action in my life. And it really sucks that the kids who OP said were best friends are no longer playing together anymore due to this. Like, what a silly move on Karen's part. And this person says, I'm an attorney who routinely deals with situations like this. There are trigger-happy people who call CPS and the police because they love the attention. It's a game, and it's an abuse of the system, and once they start, they will keep doing it. For example, next will be a restraining order against you because she feels threatened, etc. Stay clear at all costs and don't get into any back and forth conversations no matter how much she gaslights you or how insane she gets. Make an invisible border, and don't make any announcements about not being friends anymore. No drama, no confrontations, just permanently be busy forever. Cut contact, she's dangerous. So yeah, that was great advice, and if that were me, guys, I'd be looking to move because I have a feeling that she's gonna overstep boundaries and start letting her kids trespass on OP's property and do whatever the heck they want, just trying to start crap with OP. So today is my boyfriend's birthday, so I cruised through Starbucks on my way home from work to get him a vanilla latte and a cake pop. I usually mobile order, so I park and go wait for my stuff in the store. There's more than a few people in line and waiting for orders, and the drive-thru line is wrapped around the building, so obviously it's gonna be a bit of a wait. And here enters Karen. So Karen comes in, and she's standing by the end of the counter where everyone else is waiting for drinks, and she starts getting huffy. She then loudly asked why no one's taking her order, and that's when I point her to the registers. Off she goes to order, and I miss some of the conversation during the interaction due to the noise. But out of nowhere, everybody hears her scream, "You will refund me right now. I do not frequent establishments infested with gays." I hear the barista say, ma'am, I would be more than happy to refund you if you promise to leave the store and never come back. That's when the lady went postal and she storms off out of the store. I work at McDonald's and I've seen more than my fair share of Karens, but this one had me in total disbelief. I couldn't believe some people like this existed around me. Karen had her work jacket, bag, and scrubs on, loudly advertising that she works for hospice in my county. As luck would have it, I have a close friend who's a traveling hospice RN. When I told her about it, she immediately knew who I was talking about, and she said, "My boss has been waiting for a reason to fire her." and then she told her director about the altercation at Starbucks. Like, F you, Karen, and the high horse you rode in on. Enjoy being unemployed and blacklisted from all the home care companies, not just hospice. And some people said that I was the a-hole for calling my friend because I knew it would lead to her loss of employment, and that's 100% why I did it. The sweetest part is, she left without the refund. Yeah, so people like that should not work in healthcare in any form or fashion, especially hospice, guys. Like, I can't even begin to imagine how she'd deal with a gay hospice patient, guys. Like, I'm baffled. I really am. Sometimes I'll read a post and I'll just be like, oh my goodness, someone actually said that out loud in public. And honestly, if OP wasn't the one who made that call to her friend, resulting in Karen getting fired, probably would have done something to get herself fired eventually. Okay, so hearing multiple stories from you about idiots and mailboxes made me remember this one. This one happened years ago, when I was living on the East Coast. Now, I say East Coast, but it was really a rural area of New Jersey. I was working from home for a defense contractor, renting a house on the country road in the boonies. I quickly got acquainted with my next-door neighbor, a retired Master Chief Machinist mate, United States Navy. Since I'd done a hitch in the Navy as well, albeit as a Navy corpsman assigned with the Marine Corps, he often called me Jarhead Pecker Checker and told me that I knew nothing at all about the real Navy. And compared to his 30 years in the canoe club, I didn't, but he deigned to talk to me. And on occasion, he would offer me a beer and tell sea stories. He had some great ones. Now, one thorn in both of our sides was teenage yahoos from the nearest small town who thought taking their vehicles and driving them over or through mailboxes every weekend was fun. Now, the Master Chief had a worse problem than I did, since his mailbox was pretty exposed and right next to the road. Mine as well, but my landlord, who had built and landscaped my house before renting it out, had put two very large ornamental boulders at the edge of my driveway, right where the mailbox was located, leaving only about 10 inches of 4x4 posts sticking out. This didn't make my mailbox invulnerable, just a lot harder to target. The Master Chief had done a number of things, from replacing his wooden mailbox post with a steel pipe and concrete to reinforcing it with steel rods, but nothing was effective for long. We also had cameras facing the road, and had multiple recordings of the kids' cars and trucks committing these crimes, but we had a huge problem getting law enforcement to act on them. The main instigator was a 17-year-old star football player, the son of the sheriff in our county. And since we were well outside the local town, the police department had no jurisdiction. On one hot day, over a pair of cold rolling rock, the Master Chief asked me with a gleam in his eye if I was willing to help him solve this little problem. I chuckled and told him, of course, but I couldn't imagine what the hell someone with his expertise of things mechanical, electrical, and hydraulic would need with a guy like me. He then tilted his bottle at me and said that sometimes another pair of hands, even hands as klutzy as mine, was just what the doctor ordered. Now let me mention here that we both shared some hobbies, from woodworking to metalworking with guns, but the workshop in his garage was a wonder to behold. He then asked me if I was free the upcoming weekend, and I told him yes, and he said to be there about 1800 hours. I was, and I saw a large flatbed truck backed up in his driveway with a large bulky object on it, covered in canvas. The truck came equipped with a crane, which the driver used to unload the heavy load directly into Master Chief's garage. It was an anchor, a very large 1,500-pound kedge anchor. Now, for those not familiar with all the various anchors out there, this is one of the oldest designs, dating far back in history. Briefly, it consists of an upright bar, the shank, that divides at the lower end to two upward curving arms ending in flukes, flat protrusions designed to dig into the sea bottom and hold the ship from moving. At the top of the upright is a crosspiece, the stock, at 90 degrees to the arms, and its purpose is to keep the anchor vertical on the seabed to force the flukes to catch. A real museum piece. I looked at the Master Chief in surprise, as I had never seen one of these outside a movie or a museum, and I asked him where he got such a thing. And he smiled and replied, "I still know a few people." Now, the whole thing was covered in rust, which is where my help came in. He wanted my help sandblasting the entire thing and prepping it for painting. Using his equipment, we got it done that weekend, and we painted it in navy gloss white. Leaving it to dry, we arranged for the flatbed truck to come back Monday evening, and then drilled a couple of holes in the stock to mount the mailbox on. On Monday, we dug up the remains of the old mailbox post. The truck came back and moved the anchor out to where his mailbox previously stood, and we prepared a wide and shallow groove in the sand to receive the anchor. It was just deep enough to allow the arms and flukes to be buried under the few inches of sand. Now for your information, for those of you unfamiliar with that area, it's on the outskirts of what are known as the Pine Barrens, basically all sand. So the anchor was held in place for now, only by the sand it was resting on. From any distance, it was just a thick upright bar with another smaller bar holding the new mailbox. The Master Chief and I figured that we had until the weekend, so I went inside to work and he smoked a pipe on his porch. The only comment he got all week was from the mailman, who asked about the new mailbox and whether it would hold up because everyone in the area knew about the multiple mailbox vandalisms going on. Everybody knew who was doing it and exactly why nothing was ever done due to law enforcement corruption. Nothing happened Friday evening or night, so I went over to Master Chief Saturday evening to sip a few beers with him, talking, sitting on his porch with all the lights off. At about midnight, we hear the roar of an engine being over-revved coming down the road, and heard a couple of crunching thuds as mailboxes from down the road were being taken out. Nothing new. In a few seconds, we saw the headlights of a low-slung sedan, to our surprise. It was in the near lane of the two-lane road, taking square aim at his mailbox. We waited for the impact, but the result took us by surprise. Rather, it took me by surprise, because I'm pretty sure the Master Chief had a good idea of what was going to happen. As the car came into view and hit the mailbox, the full moon allowed us to see that it was an older model Crown Victoria. It turns out the sheriff had bought it at a police auction, and this is important later. The Crown Vic hit the anchor shank dead on, causing it to rotate, and the near side fluke came up very hard under the car, while the far side fluke being flipped down dug in, as it was designed to do, and plowed up a lot of ground, bringing the car to a stop. That's when the engine died, allowing us to hear loud screams coming from the car. We dove off the front porch, running over to the car, where the near side fluke had come up all the way through the floorboards of the Crown Vic. Since the car had slid up the shank of the anchor somewhat, the fluke did not come up through the engine area or the transmission as you might expect. No, it came up under the driver's seat, almost taking off the kid's leg, hence the screaming. And this was perhaps the only time that my particular expertise exceeded the Master Chief's. I whipped off my belt and used it as a tourniquet on what was left of the kid's right leg. That's when I called EMS, while the Master Chief called the New Jersey State Police. He had his head on straight, and he knew that we would need law enforcement on scene that wasn't local. They actually beat the ambulance to the scene, and they turned a little white. Meanwhile, I did what I could without proper emergency equipment. I got him out of the car after making sure that he didn't have a spinal injury, and got him flat and elevated his uninjured leg, while trying to estimate the total blood loss. I got on the phone with the EMS dispatcher and told the responding EMTs what to expect, and to tell the hospital to have blood ready at the ER. The Master Chief was telling the troopers that he had it all on his house security cameras, and there were 3 cruisers there by this time. I borrowed first aid kits from them, and did my best to dress the crushed thigh of the kid's leg and tend to his other minor injuries. The ambulance got there the same time the sheriff did, and that's when the moron promptly drew his sidearm saying that he was going to kill whoever was responsible for hurting his kid. I had the pleasure of seeing 3 large state troopers forcefully take down the even larger sheriff, disarm him, and place him in handcuffs while he kicked and struggled a bit. I stayed with my patient until the ambulance took him away. I then asked the state troopers, who were busy documenting the scene with diagrams, if I could speak with their prisoner. I've never been one to resist my own form of petty justice. They said it was unusual, but they couldn't see any harm in it as long as I kept it short. I walk over to the cruiser where the sheriff was cuffed and opened the door. The conversation went as follows. The sheriff had quieted down, but he looked up and said, "What the F do you want, a-hole?" I then asked him, in a calm and uninflected voice as I could manage, "If I get you your sidearm, do you still want to kill whoever was responsible for your son getting hurt?" At that he answers, "Hell yes I do." I then tell him, "No problem, I can do that." And after a pause, I tell him, "Just look in the mirror." The guy was so taken aback by my non-confrontational tone that it took him a few seconds to comprehend what I just said, and he gets mad. As he opens his mouth to yell, I interrupt and say, "You, the dad, are the idiot who got your son hurt and possibly killed. You knew what kind of things he was up to, just like his father, and you enabled him in these crimes. This is your fault, and now he's probably gonna die, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it. And you'll have to live with that every single day for the rest of your miserable life." Hearing me say that, he turned a lovely shade of eggplant purple by then, but I had much more to say without him interrupting, so I put my hand over his mouth. He actually gagged when he realized where the blood on my hand had come from. I tell him, "Now you listen up, you moron. You've been on camera ever since you got here. And no matter how much pull you might think you have in the state, That camera footage is going to the state attorney general, as well as to every single TV and radio station within 1,000 miles of here, far outside of any influence you might think you have to stop any of it. I have footage of you pulling your gun out on 2 unarmed civilians and 3 state troopers, threatening us, live on camera. So you're gonna go to prison for a very long time, no matter how many judges you know. I then lowered my voice even further and said, and if you piss off my neighbor over there, he will drop a few hundred to $1,000 at whatever prison you get tossed in. And I don't care how big and how bad you are, 20 guys as big and much badder than you are gonna make you suffer. And you know how cops get treated in prisons. Now, I'm not a very nice guy, but my friend is truly evil, and he's very inventive, and he knows people everywhere. And your last dying thoughts will be that you can't prove anything. I then stepped back to slam the door on him, and that's when I said, "You have a nice day now." Now, the kid did survive, but his pending full ride to Princeton was obviously lost. He spent the next few years blaming the entire world for his problems, and now the only thing he drives is his wheelchair, looking for drugs. The video evidence was pretty hard to counter, and his crap father got sentenced to 25 years for 5 counts of felony assault with a deadly weapon, 3 of those on a peace officer, and further time for 25 counts of wire fraud, theft, embezzlement, and official intimidation, uncovered by the New Jersey Commission on Investigation when they started looking into him. His attorney's weak claims were that first, the car was stolen, and second, it wasn't his, were proved false by records of his buying the Crown Vic at auction. His lawyer's last attempt was to get him placed in a minimum security facility to keep him safe. But you can't assault state police with a deadly weapon and still be placed in some country club. He did not in fact die in prison, but he got out after 15 years and he could not find a job nor anyone who would associate with him after that. He has white hair, a pronounced stoop, very bad health, and basically moves from being homeless to various shelters all around. So the moral is, don't mess with retired Master Chiefs because they'll F you up. What a crazy post that was, guys, and this is why you don't vandalize other people's properties, because sooner or later, someone's gonna get fed up and seek revenge, just like Master Chief did. And guys, I have read a few mailbox revenge posts on this channel, where people just reinforce their mailboxes really well to destroy cars, but an anchor is crazy. And for all of you who don't know what a kedge anchor looks like, I got a picture right here. So my wife and I got married months ago. We didn't get a chance to go on a honeymoon, but I planned a trip for us as a couple. I was originally planning on leaving my 9-year-old son with his regular babysitter. However, my wife insisted that we leave him with her parents. I agreed, but I was hesitant because my son has dietary restrictions due to medical problems, and my in-laws commented on his eating habits as spoiled. So I sent my son there and gave them a long list of what food he should be fed. On the 4th day of the trip, we video called and my son told me that he'd been eating only snacks and that he had not eaten a warm meal in days. I was puzzled and I asked if his grandparents didn't cook any of his regular meals on the list, and he said no, they didn't want to cook for him. They just gave him snacks. And I was absolutely livid, especially after I contacted mother-in-law and after she told me that she wasn't a personal cook for anybody, and that it's not her fault that I spoil my son. I cut the trip short and went home immediately. My wife was really upset, saying instead of cutting the long-awaited trip short, that I should have let the babysitter take care of feeding him. We had a fight, and she told me that her parents owed me nothing, and that I always ruin things for us. Now I ruined the trip that she paid for, so am I the a-hole? A lot of people are saying definitely not the a-hole in this one, because that's a father that cares about his son's well-being. Like, it's just unfortunate that he married a woman that doesn't show compassion for his son, and neither do her parents. And a lot of people seem to be giving OP the same advice, for OP to run far, far away before the wife gets pregnant, because you'd better believe that her and her parents will have full control over that child. And that, my friends, is our /EntitledPeople. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up, and if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy, crazy stories. And if you missed yesterday's episode on the channel, I'll link it right here. It's an r/I don't work here lady, where a psycho principal kidnaps OP's niece, thinking she's a student, but she's not a student, and the guy learns a lesson that he won't ever forget. Go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.